Hello and welcome to Ani's Short Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. I'm going to try and upload a new story each day. The Cursed Amulet. Holly Arnold had always been fascinated by the secrets buried beneath the earth. The ancient artifacts, hidden stories, and whispered legends of past civilizations were like a siren's call to her. So when the rumor of a mysterious amulet, one that supposedly brought misfortune to anyone who touched it, surfaced in the Isle of Wight, she couldn't resist. The discovery had been made in the ruins of an old monastery on the western coast of the island. It was said that centuries ago, a cursed artifact had been buried there by monks who wanted to rid the world of its evil influence. But no sooner had this treasure been unearthed than strange accidents began to occur. The original dig team had quickly abandoned the site, leaving behind only whispers of terror. Some even claimed the amulet was still haunted by the spirit of an ancient queen, betrayed and wronged in life, who now inflicted her wrath on the living. Holly's skeptical mind dismissed the rumors as mere folklore. A seasoned archaeologist, she believed in evidence, not myths. Determined to investigate, she set off with her equipment and a handful of old records from the monastery's archive, hoping to uncover the amulet's true history. Arriving at the dig site, Holly felt an unsettling stillness that even the brisk seaside wind couldn't stir. The sky was a wash of grey, and the ground was damp and uneven from recent rain, almost as if the land itself was trying to warn her. Ignoring the feeling, she set up her tools and carefully began her excavation. Within hours, her spade struck something solid. She cleared away the dirt to reveal a stone box adorned with faded carvings, its lid sealed tight. As her fingers traced the etchings, a chill ran down her spine, and she hesitated. This was it, the box that supposedly held the cursed amulet. Brushing off her hesitation, she pried open the lid, revealing the amulet nestled within. It was smaller than she'd expected, an intricate piece of bronze inlaid with dull, crimson stones. She was captivated by its craftsmanship, by the twisting serpent patterns and the unmistakable air of something ancient, even malevolent. But the moment her fingers brushed the cold metal, a deep, icy pain shot through her hand. Holly gasped and dropped the amulet, staring at her fingers. They felt numb, as if they'd been dipped in freezing water, though the sensation soon faded. Dismissing it as an overactive imagination, she picked the amulet up again, slipping it into her bag. As Holly drove back to her small cottage on the Isle of Wight, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her. Shadows seemed to stretch and elongate, clinging to her car as she wound through the narrow roads. She laughed it off, but she couldn't deny the prickling sense of unease that followed her all the way home. The night was restless. Holly tossed and turned, her dreams twisted and dark. She saw flashes of the amulet, of ancient stone walls and cries of anguish echoing through time. She dreamed of a queen, her face beautiful yet twisted with fury, her hand outstretched as if reaching for something or someone. Then Holly awoke, suddenly her heart pounding. The room was silent, yet she could have sworn she heard whispering. Rising, she stumbled toward her bag and drew out the amulet. As her fingers closed around it, the whispering grew louder, filling her mind with words she couldn't quite understand. "But release me," the voice murmured. Holly's grip tightened, and she shuddered. "Release me, or suffer as I have," the voice faded. Every instinct screamed at her to get rid of the amulet, to throw it as far from her as possible. But a strange compulsion held her in place. It was as though the amulet had taken hold of her mind, sinking invisible claws into her thoughts. Over the next few days, Holly's life began to unravel. Small accidents piled up. She stumbled, cutting her hand on a piece of glass. The lights in her cottage flickered at odd hours. Doors creaked open when no one was around. Even her colleagues noticed her growing weariness, the dark circles under her eyes. One night, as Holly sat in her living room, she heard footsteps pacing in the hallway. She froze, holding her breath, but the footsteps grew louder, stopping just outside her door. Gathering her courage, she opened the door only to find empty air. Yet as she turned to go back, a figure appeared in her periphery, shimmering in the dim light. It was a woman dressed in regal, ancient garb, her face pale and lined with grief. Holly recognized her from her dreams, the cursed queen. "Return my amulet," the woman said. "You wear the chain of my suffering. Release me," trembling. How can I release you?" But before she could speak further, the room filled with a bitter chill as the Queen's hand grasped Holly's, her touch like ice and fire all at once. Holly felt herself slipping, memories and thoughts blurring as an ancient darkness seeped into her mind. Images flashed before her eyes of betrayal, murder, and a curse that had lasted centuries. This amulet wasn't just cursed, it was a prison trapping the Queen's vengeful spirit. Suddenly Holly knew what she had to do. She stumbled out of the cottage, the Queen's ghostly figure looming behind her, guiding her steps. She made her way through the dark woods, following a path she'd never known but somehow sensed. The trees seemed to lean over her, blocking the moonlight and casting twisted shadows on the ground. Finally, she reached the cliffs above the sea, where ancient stones jutted out of the earth. Here, Holly understood, was the Queen's final resting place. Clutching the amulet, she whispered a quiet apology and hurled it into the depths below. For a moment, the world held its breath. The waves below crashed against the rocks, and then silence. The chill lifted, and Holly felt a weight ease from her mind. She turned, expecting to see the Queen's spirit one last time, but she was gone. Relief washed over her as she made her way back to her cottage, feeling lighter, freer. She collapsed into bed and drifted into a deep, dreamless sleep for the first time in days. Yet, when morning came, Holly found a familiar glint of metal resting on her bedside table, the cursed amulet, untouched and waiting. A chill settled into her bones. The Queen's voice echoed faintly in her mind. "You have released me, but you now bear the chain." And Holly realized, with a growing dread, that the curse had not lifted at all, it had merely found a new host. In the days that followed, Holly could feel the amulet's dark influence creeping deeper into her life, like a shadow that clung to her every move. She tried to rid herself of it, throwing it into the sea, burying it in the earth, even attempting to burn it in a desperate frenzy, but each time, the amulet would return to her bedside, cold and waiting. It seemed bound to her now, as if her very soul was entangled with its curse. Strange occurrences grew more frequent. At night, the walls of her cottage creaked with unnatural groans, and whispers drifted through the halls. She could feel eyes watching her from every corner, and shadows danced in the periphery of her vision, taunting her with fleeting glimpses of the Queen's ghostly figure. One evening, as she was leafing through the old monastery records, trying to make sense of the curse, she stumbled upon a chilling revelation. The Queen had been wronged by a man who betrayed her love and took her kingdom. In a desperate act of vengeance, she had crafted the amulet herself, pouring all her hatred and anguish into it, binding her spirit within. The monks, realizing the amulet's dark power, had buried it in holy ground, hoping it would never see the light again. Holly's pulse quickened as she read the final line, written in a frantic hand. "Only a life given willingly in her name can free her." The truth dawned on her. The amulet demanded to sacrifice a willing soul to take the Queen's place and carry her torment for eternity. That night, Holly lay awake, the weight of the amulet pressing against her chest like a stone. She felt its cold presence rub against her skin, its darkness seeping into her dreams, calling her deeper into its curse. The Queen's voice echoed louder, urging her to surrender, to give herself over completely. But Holly was no stranger to fear, and she was not one to give in. She resolved to find another way. There had to be a way to break the curse without sacrificing herself. She spent her days researching every ancient text she could find, traveling to libraries, temples, and even consulting with occultists and mediums. Yet every path led her back to the same grim conclusion: a curse was bound to her, unbreakable by ordinary means. Days turned into weeks, and the Queen's torment wore her down. Her skin grew pale, her eyes sunken, and her strength waned. She was haunted day and night, unable to escape the whispers and shadows that followed her every step. One stormy night, on the verge of exhaustion and despair, Holly felt the Queen's presence more intensely than ever before. The room grew frigid, and the ghostly figure materialized beside her, eyes hollow with a deep, ancient sorrow. "Release me," the Queen's voice pleaded. Holly, too weak to resist, finally spoke aloud. What if I could take your pain, only temporarily?" she asked. "What if I could bear it long enough to find someone willing to help?" The Queen's eyes gleamed with a flicker of hope. "Do you think you could bear my suffering, even for a night?" Holly nodded. The queen extended her hand, and Holly reached out, feeling the chill sear into her bones as they made contact. The world around her spun, her vision darkening as the queen's spirit poured into her, bringing with it centuries of anguish, betrayal, and rage. She screamed as the memories consumed her, a torrent of emotions that tore through her mind, a hatred so deep it felt like her own heart would shatter under its weight. For what felt like an eternity, Holly lived through the queen's agony, each moment a lifetime of torment. When she finally awoke, dawn was breaking over the Isle of Wight, casting a pale light over her room. The amulet lay beside her, its dark gleam softened in the morning light. The queen was gone, her spirit finally at peace. But Holly's reflection in the mirror told a different story. Her eyes had taken on a strange, haunted glint, and an unsettling calm washed over her. As the sun rose, she realized the true horror of the curse. She had taken on the queen's anguish, not temporarily, but forever. The amulet was no longer bound to her, it was part of her now, a dark legacy she would carry with her, just as the queen had before. And somewhere in the shadows, a new whisper rose, soft and relentless, promising that Holly Arnold's tale had only just begun. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please don't forget to like, and even better, like and subscribe. Thank you very much, and I hope you have had or have a great day.